Don't mind me, just can't get over that song, Sam Fela. The song that you just listened to in the background was rendered by Fela in 1976. That's about 48 years ago, and that song is still very relevant 48 years after. With that introduction, I welcome you to this particular edition of Beth Series Biologists Explain This. From any part of the world you are listening to me from, I still remain your biologist, your friend, Peter Sabiodun. Thank you for joining us on this particular edition. Now we are going to be discussing issues surrounding bleaching. Now you heard me right. Bleaching, it's becoming a menace, it's becoming so common, and unfortunately, the gullible individuals don't know how far the damages can be. And so, like we have always said, our duty at the Best Series is to ensure that we are enlightened and adequately informed so that we can live a much better life. There are so many ways we harm ourselves by taking wrong decisions or very ill-informed decisions. Sometimes or oftentimes we don't have the total picture, so we are hasty in our decisions, and so we do things without a recourse to the end of our actions. And like they always say, today was the tomorrow you prayed about yesterday. There will always be a tomorrow. So once again, I welcome you to this very special edition of Beth Series Biologists Explain This. Now I'm beginning with this video of this. Now this, all these pictures, they are not actually part of our discussion, but they will go a long way in setting the tone for what I believe would help as many of us who will be privileged to watch this video. These are stars in the past, a lot of them, and so you see them across section. You've got Dolly Parton, you've got Morgan Freeman, and then you've got, of course, Tom Hanks, you've got the Prince of Bel-Air, okay, and then you've got who else now do you see there? Okay, Harrison Ford, you've got Rambo Jr., you've got where's now Justin Bieber. Yeah, Justin Bieber, see, he has grown up. You've got Diana Ross, and you've got Eddie Murphy. Now, there's something interesting about this particular set of photographs. You see these stars when they were younger and when they are older now. Now, if we know that we are going to age eventually, and now see what aging has done to these stars. When they were younger, they seemed to have the world at their fingertips. Everybody doted over them. I mean, they were idolized, autographs, photographs, interviews all over the places. Now, some of them are not even acting anymore. Some of them are in their 70s, in their 80s, like that. But one other interesting thing I want you to note is that please look at the skin of the black actors and actresses and compare this with the skin of the white people. Okay, like just look at all of them are aging. Of course, there are age gaps, okay, between them all, but it's interesting to note what aging has done to all these stars. So please note this, because we will be referring to this as we go on. So once again, welcome on this journey with me, considering the issues surrounding bleaching. And I've always talked about, or we have always done, let's look at what we want to discuss. Our focus in this particular part one, yes, is a two-part series actually. And so we'll be discussing one, the background to this issue, then why the lightning craze, what exactly pushes people into having to whiten the skin, then the conspiracy from or concerning the skin lightening industry, you don't want to miss that. Then these words, bleaching, whitening, brightening, lightening, you can add toning, what are they all about? Then racism and colorism. I'm sure most of us listeners are familiar with racism, but colorism is something I came across while I was researching for this particular topic. And then what is colorism? Okay, and then what do bleaching creams contain? So our background starts with the statistics from WHO, which is very alarming. Of course, I mean it's the statistic is focused actually on African women, because of course the Negro will have more concentration of melanin in their skin, and I mean Nigerian women are alleged by WHO to have the highest number of bleachers in the world. So 77% of women in Nigeria are alleged to bleach. So you can look at that. How many in 10? That's very alarming. That's above 7. I mean, that's approximately 7 out of 10 women that you meet on the street will have bleached. And you begin to see that from the high school to the market and things like that, bleaching is becoming very rife and very common. Of course, this annoying list is followed by Togo, South Africa, Senegal, and Mali in that ignoble order. And so WHO has done its own best as an organization to alarm us that 40% of African women bleach. Either they are bleached or they are bleaching, and that means that other nations, other nationalities, other parts of the world will share the 60%. So it's concentrated in Africa. And then it's always been said that black is beautiful and things like that, but now the slogan is changing to if it ain't white, it ain't right at all. And they begin to see the issue that skin bleaching is becoming very common, and we are going to put our searchlight on this. What are the scenarios? What are the pushes? What are the drives? What are the compelling forces or reasons pushing our ladies, our women into this menace, this problem of having to whiten their skin? And so we define skin bleaching as a process of lightening the skin tone. Okay, usually you've got to use chemical agents to accomplish that, and so there's a negative side to skin lightening that we're going to be looking at. So it's a process of changing the skin color to become whiter. And then whiteness has always, and now we see whiteness or lightening having become elevated the world over now, and you begin to see this slogan that it's all about being white. So it's not about even the skin color anymore. It's about trying to covet everything that has to do with being white. So you see everything black being regarded as derogatory. So you see things like a blacklist, Black Maria, and things like that. And so whatever is white is deemed to be perfect and better and things like that. So it's not just about the skin color, it's about everything that has to do with whiteness is preferred now. And you begin to see people who are white skinned, light skinned, so to say, being accorded privileges and economic and social status over and above those who are dark skinned. Okay, so women the world over now are feeling pressured to have to conform. There are some fields of human endeavor now that if you ain't light skinned, you don't stand a chance. Like the aviation industry, to become a hostess, for example, is prominent. If you go to areas where people recreate, centers of recreation, you begin to see, to attract the men, a lot of the ladies. And so in the marketing field, in all kinds of things, you begin to see lightness or whitening of the skin being prominent. So there's a pressure. But I would like to say from this outset that there are pressures on us every time. It's like saying that because you are pressured to commit crime, for example, because you're broke, you're pressured to rape because you feel pressure sexually. So there are pressures. So if there are pressures that are on us and we have to yield, we have to also consider the end of the story. Like I said earlier on, sometimes we take hasty decision without having considered the total picture of what we see or what we are about to do. So if we just put in view, put in perspective the end of the whole thing, we'll be much more careful. And that is the whole essence of this video, having to treat the concept or the problem or the syndrome or the saga that we are referring to as the whitening craze, the bleaching saga. And you begin to see the worrisome trend that even African women now are trying to even whiten their babies from the skin. Now we have a conspiracy here where a lot of celebrities, we will see them along the line, see many celebrities who are being used now to push the narrative of bleaching. They are very prominent. And so you see them in the acting industry, the show business industry, the marketing, and all kind of. I mean, they are prominent all over the places, and they are influencing youths. Okay, they are public figures. You call them OAPs, online personalities. And so it's becoming, even in the wrong way, okay, the fashion industry, to be light is becoming a prominent thing. So if you have any darkening skin color, you don't probably stand a chance as a model. Of course, there are a few black models who have distinguished themselves, but majority are light skinned. And so commercials on the TV, on the internet, and advertorials of companies and movie industry, they project the issue of being light skinned as preferred to any other color, particularly dark skin color. So we come to the question, why the craze for becoming whitened? Now, like I said earlier on, the majority of women want to be light skinned for a reason. So it's like an upgrade of who you are. And this issue is that it's a, how do I put it now? Okay, now it's alleged that many men like light-skinned people. Okay, so it's like when you're light-skinned, you stand a better chance to get some kind of jobs to seduce more men. So you see the backing hall, you in the recreational centers, you see in some places where men patronize, you see many ladies being brought in light skin. If you're going to be employed, even in some grocery stores, okay, wine joints and spa and the rest of them, to attract men, you've got to be light skinned. So it's a problem. And so where the money is where the whitening, where the lightning is. So it's not becoming rational that to stand a better chance to get a good job, you've got to follow the crowd. So that is the first thing, the craze to stand a chance to have economic empowerment. So you begin to see African ladies now trying to be more economical. So to them, it's rational, it's a calculation. So the decision now is like business. Okay, let me just lighten and whiten my skin as a form of business so that I can be marketable in quotes. And we look at the skin lightening industry now. I mean, it's important for us to look at it. It's very prominent. Like I said, you've got a lot of stars, a lot of celebrities who are projecting it. And of course, those countries in the bracket there, India, Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Arabia, they are part of the world that are tropical, okay, between 20 and 30 degrees on the south of the equator. You've got the tropical regions. And so the tropical weather is sunny. With a lot of sun's insolation, there's a tanning, there's a darkening of the skin of people in these locations. And so there's a kind of stigmatization that is rife and prominent and common in these parts of the world. And so when you see advertorials, you see commercials, they talk about having to be light in color, or let's say we put it white now. And so the industry is supposed to earn about 31.2 billion at the end of 2024. You can imagine. So it's a very big and huge industry that is preying on the gullibility of individuals who buy into the narrative that white is better, notwithstanding the health hazards we will discuss in the part 2 of this video, and other complications that may arise from having to whiten the skin. And so with so much money available in the industry, of course, if we take the world's population, women are much more. They are many. You have more women than you have men. I'm sure if the ratio is not 5 to 1, I'll be very surprised that for every 5 ladies or women, there's only 1 man, so to say. So there is this rat race to be acceptable, to be showy, to be prominent, to be acceptable, to be seen. And we come to this issue of these terms being used to fool the public now by companies that manufacture these chemicals, okay, these creams, these whatever they call them. And these words are toning, brightening, lightening, whitening, and then bleaching, which is the more common one, the most common one. And all these other words, in true, if you want to say truly, they are synonyms of bleaching. Now we begin to see the narratives from companies that brightening and lightening, they are just trying to bring the glow in the skin color of the persons using them. Meaning, okay, you just make your skin glow. If you're dark, you become dark and shining, dark and lovely. If you're light, you have a tone, so to say. And they begin to demonize whitening as the one that is exactly synonymous to bleaching. But the truth is that all of these words, they mean the same thing. You are going to have to apply chemical substances topically. Topically means upon the skin surface to have a lightening. So you are the one inducing the change. It is not natural. So whether you want to call it toning or brightening or lightening or whitening is just a matter of semantics. You are changing your skin color. Simply put, you are trying to bleach. Maybe to a different extent or whatever, but it's just a matter of public gimmick. Okay, it's tomfoolery, so to say. And so it's a procedure of reducing the concentration of the pigment called melanin. So we would be discussing melanin fully in the part 2. Remember, this is the introductory video on bleaching, something that will whet our appetite, that will keep us thinking about what we have been seeing, because the problem is that we see things that we don't even take cognizance of, we just ignore. But with this video, we begin to take things more seriously and be more careful about our own health and people around us. And then the issue is that all skin whitening creams, all skin lightening procedures, they target cells in the skin called melanocytes. These are cells that produce the pigment called melanin. And so with more melanocytes, there will be more melanin production, and then the skin becomes darkened in color. Now, the amount of melanin, or the extent of melanin production in anybody's skin, is genetically coded for, is determined. And so the Negroes have genes that produce a lot of melanin. That's why we are dark skin. And you see, in genetics, or let's say in evolutionary situations, there's an adaptation of every individual to its environment. There's something called selection pressure. Now, the idea of nature is to protect Negroes from the damaging effect of the ultraviolet radiation from the sun's insolation. So when the sun is hottest, there is this risk of having to develop skin cancer. So what nature has done is to ensure that when the black skin of the individual who's a Negro is exposed to the sun, you begin to induce melanin. So it's a protective approach. So we are in this particular situation, so as long as you stay in the tropical region, you are going to need a lot of melanin. And unfortunately, it is this melanin, or let's say it's the melanocytes that produce this melanin that protects the skin, that topical creams that lighten or whiten the skin target. They all try to destroy as many melanocytes, if not all of them, as much as possible. So note, everyone listening to me right now, that the whole idea about whitening is to let's not use the word destroy, let's say like it is to destroy, to kill cells called melanocytes. And so once you are able to get rid of them, you have succeeded in ensuring that melanin is no more in the skin. Let's begin to look at other things about this whitening situation. Now, there's something that came up when I was researching for this particular topic, and I came across the word colorism. Now, I had to dig deep because I was familiar with racism, colorism. What the hell was that? And I found it very intriguing. And so I want to educate us here. I'm sure many of us are familiar with racism. I mean, South Africa epitomized that years ago. Of course, it is too subtle in the US and the UK and other parts of the world where blacks and other nationalities are discriminated against, okay? But we see colorism as discrimination based on skin color. So even within individuals of the same race, you have colorism. Colorism is just discrimination based on skin. I mean, some scientists have called it hierarchical discrimination. So if you see blacks discriminate against blacks, so you have different shades of blackness, so to say. So, but when you come to racism, is discrimination against specific races. That's the thing. You can imagine the battle of Hitler, for example, against the Jews, or the battle of the white against the blacks, so to say. And then racism can be individual, where certain individuals in a particular set of places are being discriminated against. It can be institutional, where certain practices all across certain spheres of human endeavor cut off some individuals who are dark-skinned. It can be structural, where there are policies or practices or philosophies or ideologies that discriminate against individuals who are perceived as colored, as they called. So still on racism and colorism. Now, racism is prejudice against people of a certain racial and ethnic grouping or affiliation or origin or background, and colorism simply affects the degree to which you are discriminated against based on the degree of lightness, of lightening or whitening of your skin. And I want us to please Google that video, click on that video by ABC. ABC did a video on colorism where certain persons were interviewed to get their feedbacks on their experiences as regards colorism, because that particular video by ABC was to bring to fore to the public notice the existence of colorism, because racism seems to be the only thing people are aware of, and colorism is so common, but it's subtle because it's overshadowed by colorism. So I'm sorry, racism overshadows colorism. So colorism is shrouded in secrecy. So I bring to you, dear listener, the issue regarding colorism. And like this lecturer, David Ademolo, talked about, he defined colorism as intra. So you can have inter means between, intra means within. So you got intra-racial complexion-based hierarchy that often affords societal, cultural, economic privileges and favoritism towards lighter-skinned persons. And then you got discrimination against those with darker complexion. So it's an hierarchical discrimination. Now, it's done in different ways, but I bring to you three different ways of colorism. One is known as the one-drop rule. One-drop rule simply means that it dates back to the 17th century, so you can see how old it is. It simply means that even though you are in the third or, let's say you are the second or third generation of a particular family, just because you manage to have had anybody in your lineage who was black, you are simply black. Even if you married a white person and your children are supposed to be mulatto, so to say, or half caste, they are still black. I mean, it's a stigmatization issue. Just because in your family somebody was black, you are no longer black, you are still regarded as black. You are not given any kind of status or consideration anymore. And the blue vein issue is, of course, if you're a biology student or you have read a biology text before, you see that veins are usually colored blue while arteries are colored red. Why is this? Because of the issue of the blood being deoxygenated in the veins. And so when you're light skinned to an extent, your veins appear bluish in color. That is the concept behind blue vein. And so if you begin to see some public places where if a black person wants to enter, you are you are prevented from entering. So you call this kind of issue, these places, you've got the blue vein societies where light-skinned people only are allowed to enter. And so because you say you are alleged not to be light enough to see the blue veins in your skin, and so you are discriminated against, and you are not allowed entry to such places. That's the issue of the blue vein syndrome. Remember, it's still about colorism, extent of lightness. The people who are discriminating against you are black themselves, but because you are darker, you have a darker tone of skin color than they have, they don't consider you as part of them. And then you got the annoying one, the paperback. Now look at the color of the text colorism and the color of that phrase, that area light enough, like that, brown in color. Now, if your skin color is not like this, you are not regarded as part of them. So your color is being compared with this text color now of colorism on the screen here. And so if you don't have this kind of thing, if your skin is darker than the color of these texts that you are looking at, you are discriminated against. So that's the brown paper back test of syndrome. And so African American, of course, those people mentioned in the list are those who grow or live in the tropical regions of the world. And so we see that there's another one I want to explain now, apart from this, the first two, the paper bag and the blue vein issue and the one dropped issue. Now the first one is the halo effect. Now the halo effect is a very funny one because it presumes that if somebody has a good quality in one area, okay, that quality is now extended to mean that that person has other qualities. Is assumed. It's an assumption. So if a guy met a lady somewhere, for example, and the lady is good looking, like fine and things like that, begin to conclude that she must be courteous and she must be a good cook and she's a wife material because she looks good. And if a lady met a guy, he's got 6 packs, has a nice ride, lives in the choice part of society, has a good job and things like that, has a deep voice, like you say in the movies, and hi. And so she begins to assume that this is a husband material. It's got to be a good kiss and things like that. So that is the problem of the halo effect. Apply this now to this issue of colorism. Light-skinned people are assumed to be smarter, wiser, much more intelligent. Excuse me, don't they poo? Don't they wee-wee? Okay, don't they fat? I mean, what's this nonsense about the halo effect? And so, I mean, if you're not careful, you look at yourself in your place of work, among your colleagues. Who do you discriminate against because of certain things? So you begin to use one area of life and extend it. You are extrapolating it. You are assuming that it's got to be. So if somebody is good in an area, you assume that that person is good in other areas. So light skin is assumed to mean good quality, high IQ and proficiency and things like that. We know that in different parts of the world, blacks are excelling. And so it's erroneous, but it's a problem because it's suppressing the rights and the privileges of people with color. And so we want to put our focus on what do these creams even contain in the first instance. Now, mercury and hydroquinone are highlighted there, but as you can see on the list, there are so many other chemical substances in different concentrations that you have in the different creams. And so kojic acid too is very common, but we cannot treat all of them. The list is for us for further reading and further study. So I will further discuss mercury and hydroquinone briefly now, and of course a bit of corticosteroids. Mercury is deadly. It's been banned in most developed countries and in Europe, and unfortunately it's being smuggled into countries and is very common in Africa because African nations and states are very porous. They've got porous borders. Regulatory authorities are bribed, they are complicit and things like that. And you begin to see high blood pressure, headaches, difficulty concentrating. Then you got weight loss, you've got neurological symptoms. I mean, you just imagine insomnia, you can't sleep, your kidney crashes. I will talk about the kidney failure in the next scene now, but just look at the list of symptoms that can arise or result just because somebody wants to whiten his or her skin. Still on Mercury, you've got nephrotic syndrome. Now, this is a damage to the nephrons of the skin. Now, there's a particular set of blood vessels called the glomerulus that filter blood when blood gets to the kidney. Now, proteins usually are held back, okay, from being filtered. Now, proteins generally, like plasma proteins, fibrinogen, albumin, and the rest of them, they help to maintain osmotically the blood pressure. Okay, so it's like holding on to water to maintain a balance so we don't lose too much water. So when you begin to see proteins leaking during filtration, it's a problem. Now, you begin to see that if somebody has nephrotic syndrome because of mercury poisoning, you begin to see that the person begins to excrete too much protein in the urine, and then it can lead to edema, which is swelling around the eyes and some parts of the body. You've got the feet becoming swollen and the ankles, the urine becomes foamy, and then you see loss of appetite and fatigue because of loss of fluid, or because of mercury poisoning, and or because of having or desiring to whiten. So we turn to hydroquinone. Okay, hydroquinone is a lightening agent. Now, unlike mercury, its target is very simple. It's used to just overcome the issue of hyperpigmentation. Hyper means too much. Now, usually or initially, it is used innocently to do certain things. I mean, try to remove spots caused by pregnancy. Pregnancy causes freckles, causes melasma and hyperpigmentation. Pregnancy has a way of disfiguring women sometimes, and so you begin to see that there's a topical application of hydroquinone in creams. And so innocently it's used, but the way it works is what we are going to discuss next. All hydroquinone does is to ensure that melanocytes are killed, hence melanin production in the skin reduces. Okay, so it disrupts the epidermis. So you can click on the link there and begin to find the symptoms and the effects of hydroquinone in creams. Okay, it can cause inflammation, which is swelling in the deeper part of the skin, and it disrupts the sebaceous layers and the hair follicles of the skin. So you see in the background the effect of hydroquinone. Now there's a damaging effect I want to talk about now, and that is the fact that inflammation increases. Now there's a concept of this particular gene called P65, which is important regulator in inflammation, that is swelling. I said earlier on, proliferation is when you have many cells being produced, okay, abnormally. And apoptosis is programmed cell death. When cells age, they are broken down and new cells are produced. Of course, failure to break cells down and produce new ones, if you don't control cell division, it leads to cancer. Cancer is defined simply as uncontrolled mitosis. And when you don't control mitosis, it leads to tumor formation. Tumor is a mass or a collection of undifferentiated cells. Generally, when cells divide, undergo mitosis, they differentiate into a particular part of the body, the brain, kidney, lung, and the rest of them. But in the case of cancer, cancer cells don't become anything. They just cluster, they form a tumor, and tumor grows at the expense of healthy cells. The tumor grows big and it shrinks the part of the body where it is growing. So that's a problem here now. And you begin to see that when cells don't die, then they just grow. So that's a sign of cancer. So hydroquinone may not cause cancer directly, but by blocking apoptosis, it is encouraging cancer to develop. And hydroquinone, it reduces the thickness of the skin. The skin has layers. It's got the epidermal layer outside and the dermis. And even the epidermis has 3 layers also. You've got the conified layer outside to protect us. And so when your skin is thinner, it affects surgery, it affects so many things. Sun can easily penetrate and cause more damages to the dermis of the skin. And a more worrisome aspect of hydroquinone's effect is the fact that it causes exogenous ochronosis. That's what you see on the screen there. Yeah, I'm sure if you have seen anyone who has bleached for some time now, you'll have seen all kinds of blackheads. You have seen darkening patches that will not heal because it's irreversible. And so the blackening of the skin of bleachers is what is called exogenous ochronosis. And of course, exogenous talks about is from the outside, okay? From the outside, there's a particular genetic disorder called acaptonuria that can also called endogenous ochronosis. That is from the inside. But it's amazing that with all of this information, of course, it's because people don't read, or there's this complicity from the media, because there's so much money that media outfits make from adverts and things like that. So they may just be quiet about all of this. So this part one has introduced the issue of bleaching. It's talked about what it is. So whitening, lightening, toning, and all of those words, they are just gimmick, okay, to fool us. And then we have talked about colorism. We talked about the reason people feel pressured. That's the introduction. So watch out for part two of this particular topic on the whitening craze. The part two will be talking about a lot of things. It is loaded, very loaded. We're talking about the symptoms and the signs, the cost. You'll be very surprised at the extent of this issue of bleaching, where people even bleach the sex organs. We call it the intimate area bleaching. And so you don't want to miss part two. I'm sure it's going to come out very soon. But thank you very much for watching this edition. Please, if you have been educated and enlightened and informed, please like and share and subscribe to this channel so that I can get our updates once our videos are uploaded. And please share these videos to as many of your loved ones, colleagues, and acquaintances that you can. Let it go viral. Please don't be miserly. Don't hoard this particular video. If you have never shared any video before, this is one you cannot afford not to share, because it borders on the health of so many people. And so I want to begin to appreciate you for taking time out to watch this video. And so I believe that you have learned a lot and you begin to apply this. And from now on, when you buy any cream, watch the names on the label, okay? Because there may be, of course, they may not tell you everything, but at least watch out for some names and be very careful whether to buy a particular medication or topical cream or not, for the sake of your health and of your loved ones. Thank you very much once again. See you in part two. Bye.